In the outskirts of Kushan City, a secluded castle hid itself under the cover of night. A mysterious group entered the castle's dark corridor. The 5-person team gathered in the vast, empty hall. One of the group questioned the accuracy of the information, but Nagi dismissed it, saying it came from Count Caseless. Nagi scoffed, boastfully asking if anyone had seen even an ant, let alone a demon beast. The man holding the map spoke up, suggesting that rumors of Boss Nagi's arrival had spread, causing all the demon beasts to flee. Nagi delightedly accepted that explanation, deeming it reasonable. He confidently took his first steps deeper inside. Suddenly, a chilling aura swept through the silent hall. They were stunned to realize this place was completely off the map. A subordinate pointed ahead, reporting an exit and stairs leading upward. Before them were 2 paths, a brightly lit staircase and a pitch-black corridor. Nagi initially criticized the corridor for looking gloomy and decided to go upstairs, but then he frowned in annoyance, remembering that the Ilneon gang had been tasked with handling the upper floor. He decisively pointed towards the darkness, declaring, "We'll go that way." Then he gestured with his chin, ordering one of the group, "Go." The map holder flinched, unable to believe his ears. Nagi growled, his eyes flashing with a deadly gaze. "I said, go," making the other person frantically wonder, "Me?" Daring not to disobey, the map holder bowed his head and complied. Nagi narrowed his eyes, watching his subordinate's back as he ventured into the darkness. The poor man trembled, fumbling his way step by step through the deep corridor. After a while, he returned to report that there was nothing there. Just as he reported to Nagi, a colossal monster with blood-red eyes silently appeared behind the leader. In a flash, a demon wolf lunged out, tearing apart the unfortunate man's body. Nagi fell backward, horrified to face a pack of bloodthirsty wolves towering and closing in. The monsters growled, baring their sharp fangs, ready for the feast. The pack of demon wolves snarled and charged, radiating intense, killing intent. Nagi gnashed his teeth, sweat pouring from him in fear. A colossal shadow loomed, signaling imminent death. The alpha monster landed on the ground, creating a powerful tremor. Nagi screamed in terror. "What the hell is that?" Ranson's entire team was now completely surrounded by demon beasts. "Too many demon beasts. What do we do?" A desperate voice cried out. Nagi grabbed his comrade's collar, growling. "What do you mean, what do we do?" He yelled, "Fight if you want to live," then pushed his comrade towards the wolves as bait. From behind, Nagi frantically screamed, "You bastards! Go out there and stop them!" Immediately, a soldier was torn apart by the wolves amidst agonizing screams. Fresh blood splattered across the cold stone floor. Another subordinate collapsed next to his comrade's corpse, gasping his last breaths. Nagi let out a piercing shriek, his eyes bloodshot with extreme terror. He knelt, his sword falling from his hand in despair. Seizing the opportunity, a demon wolf lunged straight at him with jaws wide open. Suddenly, a stream of emerald energy pierced through the monster's head. Nagi stared in astonishment as the wolf's corpse collapsed right beside him. On the balcony, a figure appeared, speaking leisurely. "Hey, need a hand?" Nagi looked up, overjoyed and screaming, "Ranson!" Ranson landed lightly, sarcastically remarking, "Your timing is perfect." The swordsman glanced at Nagi with a meaningful look. Ranson casually walked forward, commanding, "Watch closely, Nagi." He drew his sword, blue energy enveloping the blade, declaring, "The caliber of a swordmaster." The alpha wolf growled, sensing the deadly threat. Nagi could only stand dumbfounded, completely overwhelmed by the power of the newcomer. Ranson swung his sword and charged at the ferocious alpha wolf. The monster's pained roar echoed as a stream of blue energy pierced through its head. With a decisive slash, Ranson cleaved the colossal demon beast in two. Without hesitation, 2 other wolves from the pack furiously charged for revenge. Ranson's gaze was sharp, completely focused on the battle. He moved like a phantom, continuously swinging his sword, leaving trails of blue light that annihilated the wolf pack. Nagi stood frozen, utterly astonished by this display of power. Meanwhile, Nagi's subordinates cheered excitedly. As expected of Ranson, amidst the wolf corpses, Ranson flicked his sword, looking coldly towards Nagi. A soldier flattered, "Wow, you're truly incredible. A swordmaster really is on a different level." Nagi forced a smile. "I wonder how generously Count Klaas will reward you." He tried to save face. "You know, I could have actually handled all of this myself." Ranson merely responded with an icy stare. Then he said contemptuously, "You're all talk, but your swordsmanship is mediocre." Nagi gritted his teeth, his eyes burning red with resentment as he heard Ranson add, "If you want to get stronger, practice more." Ranson only responded to that anger with a smug smile. "Yes, yes, of course." Nagi clenched his fist, cursing inwardly, "I definitely will." The scene shifted to the desolate Ilneon ruins in Kushan City. Bursoon rushed over, yelling, "Ranson, why are you so late?" Ranson replied wearily, "I'm sorry, it's just... something happened." Bursoon's face revealed extreme anguish. Ranson asked worriedly. Did something happen? He gave me this and took the children, Burson said in despair, handing him a scroll. Ranson unrolled the scroll and read it, his expression becoming extremely serious. His eyes widened in horror as he read the content. Bursoon asked with a trembling voice upon seeing the order, kill Delkashu. He told you to kill him? Bursoon watched with a face full of anxiety and astonishment. Their target was Blood Count Delkashu, a powerful pure-blood vampire and also a swordmaster who dominated Kashu City. While Kushan City was managed by Count Klaas, Kashu City was under Count Delkashu, causing their interests to constantly clash. Kaeslas and Delkashu were sworn enemies, and thus, those living in Kushan like them had to do all sorts of dirty work to gain Kaeslas's support. Bursun thought desperately to himself. Prince Ranson only wanted to leave this place and live peacefully with the children, while he had been loyal to that bastard for over 10 years. Ranson stood there, his gaze unwavering. Bursoon growled, "You can't go. Moreover, Count Delkashu is a pure-blood vampire." Ranson shook his head decisively. "Without them, I have no reason left to live." "You just got back. Where do you think you're going in this state?" Burson yelled. Ranson replied, his gaze sharp. "You said he took the children. We can't waste any more time." "It's too dangerous," Bursoon cried out in panic. "He even has expert-level vampires under his command." Ranson sternly called his name, Sir Burson. "That is an order," Ranson asserted, stunning Burson. Burson bowed his head, sweat streaming down his temples. Finally, he submitted. "Yes, Your Highness." Ranson turned his back and entrusted, "Sir Bursoon, you will stay and look after my siblings." He smiled confidently. "I will surely win and return to set everything right." Bursoon silently watched Ranson and his team disappear behind the ruins, his hands clenched into fists. "Your Highness," Burson whispered to himself. "This time, I don't think I can obey that order." A memory suddenly flooded back. The year 1337, in the kingdom of Vanroa engulfed in flames, the queen of the kingdom of Vanroa stood firm amidst the smoke and fire, ordering, "I will hold them off here. Take Ranson and get out." Knight Commander Burson, still a young man then, resolutely refused. "I cannot do that. I will stay until the end and protect the queen." "Sir Bursoon," the queen said, placing a hand on her young son's shoulder, "what you must protect now is the bloodline of the kingdom of Vanroa." Young Bursoon's face was filled with pain and conflict as he heard the entrustment. He gritted his teeth, suppressing his anguish to accept his mission. "Second Prince, listen carefully. You must survive at all costs," the queen instructed her son. "It is the destiny of the Vanroa royal family to pass on the bloodline to future generations." She said firmly, "You too, Prince, must fulfill your duty to the royal family." Young Ranson burst into tears. "No, mother. I don't want to run away alone." The queen silently placed a necklace around her son's neck. "This necklace will surely help," she said, giving him the last protective charm. Smiling through her tears, she placed all her trust in him. "Please, make sure you restore the Vanroa royal family." Ranson clutched the pendant, a silent promise given. Standing behind the young prince, young Knight Bursoon gritted his teeth, enduring the pain. He placed his hand on his chest, solemnly swearing, "I will dedicate my entire life to serving Your Highness." Bursoon's memory began with a horrifying scene, the sky engulfed in flames. I, the one who could not die, was fortunate to escape, only just managing to bring the second prince with me. Young Ranson looked back at the burning capital in despair, thinking, I failed to protect them, and I had to flee without being able to protect the king or the queen. The image of the solitary queen appeared in his mind. Ironically, the day the kingdom fell was also the second prince's 13th birthday. The 500-year history of the Night Kingdom of Vanroa ended in a sky-high inferno. The once great kingdom was utterly annihilated. "We've reached the designated escape route," Bursoon said, leading the last survivors of the nobility and the Knight Order. On April 1st, continental year 1337, they began their exile across the sea. Overcoming the storm, their ship successfully docked at Roxian. From Gloryland, they continued towards Robberland, the land of outlaws. On August 23rd, continental year 1337, a torrential rain welcomed them. Finally, the refugees set foot in Robberland, where criminals and fugitives gathered. 2 months later, in the city of Kushan, many knights had fallen, with only 12 remaining. The burden on their shoulders was His Highness Ranson, the sole legitimate heir, along with the last descendants of the noble families. "We must protect them," Burson muttered to himself, even though only disgrace and misery lay ahead. The flashback turned to Count Delkashu's castle in the city of Kashu. Inside a ruined great hall, a blonde swordswoman slumped amidst countless corpses. Meanwhile, Bursoon fought fiercely, swinging sharp sword strikes amidst the enemy's encirclement. He clutched his chest, telling himself he had to hold on a little longer. "His Highness Ranson," Bursoon growled, his gaze fixed forward. He poured all his strength into rushing through the devastated corridor, only wishing for that person's safety. A sound echoed from behind the double doors, stained with fresh blood. Bersoon pushed open those doors and stepped inside. He was stunned, horrified by the hellish scene before his eyes. Amidst the great hall strewn with corpses, a dark figure stood tall in the distance. It was Delkashu, the ruler of the Blood Clan, sitting leisurely on the throne with his blood-stained sword. Bersoon looked around in a panic, sweat pouring down. What happened? He let out a dry cough, seemingly wounded in the battle as well. Then he saw a familiar figure on the stairs and shouted, "Ranson!" The loyal knight's eyes widened, filled with utter horror. Prince Ranson slumped on the steps, his legs covered in blood. He looked up, giving a desperate smile. "It's all over. Truly over." "Over?" Ranson's words left Bersoon speechless, his face darkening. The queen's image appeared in his mind, her voice desperate. "Is the bloodline of Van Roa extinguished? Our vows of happiness, does it all end like this?" Bersoon silently turned his back, his figure heavy with sorrow. But then he gritted his teeth, roaring from the depths of his soul. "No, it can't end like this," he told himself, tears streaming down, but his will surged powerfully. Bersoon tore a piece of his cloak, hastily bandaging Ranson's bleeding leg. He carried the young prince on his back, roaring, "I must save his highness, Ranson." 3 years later, in the Ilneon ruins of Kushan City, a new settlement was gradually forming. 2 children played innocently, their clear laughter echoing under the sunlight. In another corner, a man was diligently working, revealing a gleaming metal prosthetic hand. Ranson sighed in relief, wiping sweat after finishing the last hammer blow. Hearing a call, he turned and saw Bersoon approaching. "You're here?" Ranson smiled in greeting from atop the wooden ladder. Suddenly, his prosthetic leg slipped off the step. Ranson lost his balance and tumbled to the ground, to Bersoon's alarm. "Are you all right?" Bersoon quickly helped him up, but Ranson merely brushed him off. "I'm fine." "What did the Count say?" Bersoon sighed wearily. "Same as always. He told me to wait another month." "All right. We're still managing for now, so we'll ask again next month," Ranson replied optimistically. Bersoon said sternly, "By the way, I told you not to do things like this." "I can't ask the children to do it," Ranson chuckled. "The children are all grown up now," Bersoon countered. Ranson remained firm. "Even if they're grown, you're going to say I'll protect them again, aren't you?" Bersoon interrupted irritably. "Tiesk, the elixir," Ranson slyly retorted. "And you're going to say, if only we had the elixir, right?" "Yes, kid," Bersoon admitted. "The elixir, the divine medicine of life, an ancient miracle that modern magic could not replicate, was said to have been found 200 years ago." "That's just an old story," Ranson dismissed. "What does that have to do with me? My daily life isn't really inconvenient," he added, leaving Bersoon speechless. "All right, I won't say another word." Bersoon thought to himself in despair. "I guess a miracle like that won't happen again." Suddenly, a group of children frantically shouted, "Teacher, look out!" they screamed, as an object hurtled straight towards Ranson. In an instant, Ranson raised his prosthetic arm to block the blow. He easily caught the wooden sword, then turned back to grumble. "I just finished fixing the roof. I'm not doing it again." Ranson looked at his student, instructing seriously, "Next time, no matter what, don't let go of your sword." The boy spread his hands in confusion, but I held on very tight. "The problem isn't gripping the sword tightly," Ranson explained, closing his eyes. He took a stance, demonstrating, "You need to stand firm on both feet, and put your entire body's weight into it," Ranson instructed. "And visualize your opponent in your mind." His gaze sharpened, focusing on the wooden dummy in front of him. Suddenly, a horrifying memory flooded back. A younger Ranson's face drenched in sweat and despair. In the past, Delkashu lunged down with a fatal blow. His crimson sword strike sent Ranson flying. The young knight's body slammed hard onto the cold stone floor. Delkashu landed, his eyes malicious. Ranson looked up at his enemy in shock. The vampire scoffed. "The more you have to protect, the heavier those thoughts weigh on you." He charged, roaring die, as he swung his sword for the kill. But Ranson managed to parry the blow with a strike that glowed emerald green. He gritted his teeth and retorted, "Because I have something to protect, I cannot die." Delkashu merely offered a savage smile at the resistance. He furiously increased the pressure, determined to crush his opponent. Ranson strained to defend, sweat and blood mingling. 2 surges of power clashed in a battle to the death. Fresh blood splattered, ending the brutal flashback. Back in reality, Ranson stood frozen, his hand still gripping the wooden sword. Bersoon and the ash-haired boy exclaimed in surprise. "Ranson," the ash-haired boy whispered in admiration. Teacher Ranson tore the wooden dummy apart. Ranson stared blankly down at the shattered dummy at his feet. He snapped out of it, scratching his head with an awkward laugh. "Ah, sorry. I'll fix it right away." Just then, another boy rushed over, shouting, "Teacher Ranson." The boy, out of breath, yelled, "Something big has happened." With a panicked expression, the boy reported, "Daisy and Seclin." The smile on Ranson's face vanished, replaced by a sharp, worried gaze. A grim thought echoed in the ruined corridor. This is an ill omen. Ranson shot off like an arrow, his intuition telling him something was wrong. This isn't just a children's fight. I smell blood. He screamed with extreme panic. The children! Before his eyes was the sight of the two teenagers, Daisy and Seclin, fiercely clashing swords, both already injured. Daisy, with her fiery red hair and eyes, gritted her teeth in endurance, her clothes already stained with blood. Seclin, despite his face and hands covered in wounds, steadfastly parried the opponent's attack. When Ranson arrived, he saw the two children surrounded by a group of people, and Seclin spoke with a sarcastic tone. "Oh, long time no see, Brother Ranson." A cold, killing intent gleamed in Ranson's eyes as he assessed the situation. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Ranson growled, asking Nagi, who was casually perched on one of Kaselas's subordinates. Nagi smirked, replying nonchalantly, "Oh, this? We're just conducting an interview." Ranson's face darkened with suspicion. "An interview? If they have potential, I intend to recruit them into my direct bloodline," Nagi declared, signaling for Daisy and Seclin to step back. "How dare you mix your foul blood with theirs?" Ranson roared in anger. Nagi's smile grew more contemptuous. "Brother, becoming the lowest-ranking bloodkin is still better than serving an old, crippled, armless, and legless wretch," he concluded with a cruel insult. Ranson snapped his head up, his gaze sharp as a dagger piercing Nagi. "Does Count Klaus know about this?" Nagi burst out laughing. "The Count? Brother, you truly don't understand the situation. Do you think someone as busy as His Excellency would care about every trivial matter like this? So you came here yourself? Even knowing this is our family's territory?" Ranson questioned, his voice icy. "Indeed, I knew and I came," Nagi confidently admitted. "There's a rumor, you see, that the great swordsman Ranson has lost all his limbs." Nagi's eyes gleamed maliciously as he finished the sentence. "All because of a few brats." "What?" Ranson was stunned, his pupils contracting in extreme shock and fury. With a sinister smile, Nagi provoked, "I wonder if you can protect them with that body." Ranson issued a final warning, his voice sharp. "Leave the children alone and get out in silence, or I will kill you." Nagi sneered, completely disbelieving the threat. "You have enough power to." Before he could finish, Nagi saw Ranson's shadow flash forward like lightning, swinging his sword to attack. Instantly, Ranson was in the middle of the encirclement, using a wooden sword to block the attacks of 3 subordinates simultaneously. 2 of Nagi's subordinates were wary, wondering about their opponent's true strength. Ranson coldly asserted, "They are no match for me. Don't underestimate a swordsman." He growled, single-handedly, using a wooden sword to block the attacks of 3 men simultaneously. Ranson's prosthetic arm flared with an emerald green energy. A powerful sword strike swept horizontally, sending 2 of Nagi's subordinates flying. Nagi exclaimed in astonishment upon seeing his henchmen easily defeated. He clapped his hands and sneered, "Just like old times." "Brother, you're truly amazing," Ranson coldly retorted. "These rookies lately, they don't know what fear is." "Come on, don't be so harsh," Nagi chuckled faintly. His smile turned sinister. "Their opponent is a monster, after all." Ranson looked straight into his opponent's eyes. "You've always been so insecure in front of me, Nagi." "Insecure?" Nagi smirked, his face full of provocation. Daisy and Seclin watched in horror as the confrontation grew increasingly tense. Nagi's killing intent erupted, his hands brandishing a pair of deadly daggers. Ranson realized the perilous situation. "In my current state, there's no escape. It has to end with a single blow," he decided, pouring all his strength into his sword. Ranson lunged into the air, striking a lightning-fast blow down upon Nagi. Nagi also roared, swinging his sword to parry the blow with a stream of blazing red energy. "I've got you," Ranson smirked confidently. Countless swordsmen seemed to merge into one in that decisive moment. A blue sword strike tore through the night. Ranson's eyes flashed with a decisive glint. 2 streams of blue and red sword energy clashed fiercely, fresh blood splattering everywhere. Their blades grated, clashing and sparking. Nagi was stunned, but then laughed gleefully. "What's wrong with you?" he declared. "Your core has been completely destroyed." "You?" Ranson was frozen. Nagi scoffed. "Did you really think I couldn't reach the peak?" he affirmed with a smug smile. "That's why I always say bloodline is superior." Ranson thought desperately. "Now, what should I do with you?" His gaze turned towards Daisy and Seclin, who were trembling. Or will he just kill them one by one? He made a painful decision, gripping the hilt of his sword tightly. If it's a losing battle anyway. Ranson's mechanical hand loosened. He called out, accepting his fate. "Nagi," Ranson pleaded. "Can we stop here? There are children. At least protect them." Nagi looked surprised. Then he burst into a savage laugh. What is this? Nahi sneered. Swordmaster Ranson, are you begging me now? Ranson gritted his teeth, enduring the humiliation. I don't deny it. He knew his enemy's intention well. What you want is to trample me and watch me fall. Nagi smirked. Then I can't let you off easily. Ranson bowed his head, resigned. Nagi cracked his knuckles, preparing to strike. I need to warm up a bit too. Immediately, Nagi delivered a devastating punch to Ranson's face. He cruelly delivered continuous blows without holding back. A powerful hook sent fresh blood splattering. Ranson was knocked down onto the cold ground. Nagi finished with a merciless follow-up kick. He placed his foot on Ranson's gasping chest. That is. From the bleeding corner of his mouth, Ranson whispered a bitter apology. Nagi paused, looking annoyed. Then a cruel smile spread across his lips again. He clapped his hands mockingly. Come on, don't be so weak with me. Let's stop here. Nagi smirked triumphantly. We'll continue tomorrow. The children knelt beside their defeated teacher. One boy anxiously asking, Teacher, you really lost. What should we do now? Despite being battered, Ranson still managed to smile. It's all right. I've protected all of you, and that's enough. Night fell, the full moon illuminating the sky. In the wooden house, Ranson, his wounds bandaged, sternly questioned, Daisy, Seclin, why did you two do that? He crossed his arms, looking straight at them. Do you two really want to become bloodkin? Seclin bowed his head, his voice full of remorse. I'm sorry, teacher. In contrast, Daisy crossed her arms, stubbornly turning her face away without saying a word. Ranson narrowed his eyes and asked, Daisy, don't you have anything to say? He froze, growling in surging anger. Nonsense. What did you just say? Daisy snapped her head up, her gaze challenging. Why? Am I not allowed to serve under Xia's? The girl screamed, her eyes blazing red with resentment. Even you used to be his subordinate, didn't you? Ranson smiled bitterly. Or have you forgotten? A terrifying memory flooded back, with the evil figure of Delkashu. Because of his bottomless greed to become a vampire, our comrades, our family, all of them are dead. Back in the present, Ranson raised his metal arm. And this is what became of me. His gaze turned cold. And now you want to grovel at his feet, live by sucking blood? Ranson clenched his fist on the table. What's it to you, master? Daisy slammed the table and stood up. Are you my father to tell me what to do? She burst into sobs, yelling, I'll take care of my own life, so don't meddle in my affairs and take care of yourself. Daisy's words were like a knife stabbing Ranson. Daisy! Ranson called out in shock as she turned and ran away. The door slammed shut, leaving a heavy silence. In the quiet room, only Ranson and Seclin remained. Seclin hesitated, breaking the silence. Master, the boy sadly tried to comfort him. Daisy didn't mean it, Seclin continued, his eyes full of remorse. And, I know, that sometimes, kneeling in such circumstances also requires a lot of courage. Ranson remained silent, lost in his own thoughts. Seclin said worriedly, You must be in a lot of pain, master. He turned away. I'll go ask Uncle Burson for a potion. Ranson smiled faintly in response. Thank you. Suddenly, Burson burst in, shouting, Ranson, are you all right? Burson began to explain with a serious expression. Just now, Lena said. She heard from Daisy that you, Master, and Nagi were fighting, and it looked like someone was about to get hurt, so she ran to ask me for help. In a flashback, the girl named Lena frantically called out, Uncle! Back in the present, Lena mumbled from behind Burson. Big sister Daisy told me to keep it a secret. The whole group looked at Ranson, who was trying to suppress a laugh. Finally, he couldn't hold it in and burst into hearty laughter, dispelling the tense atmosphere. Burson carried Lena on his shoulder, handing Ranson a recovery potion, while Seclin smiled in relief. Ranson's mechanical hand reached out to take the potion. He looked at the potion, silently thanking Daisy. Night fell, quiet and heavy. Alone in his room, Ranson suddenly coughed dryly. He coughed violently, his body doubling over in pain. A streak of dark black blood stained his metal hand after the cough. He clenched his hand, thinking bitterly, if only my core was intact, I could have dealt with Nagi. Memories of innocent children playing flashed through his mind. Ranson gritted his teeth, telling himself, no, that's enough. Just protecting the children, that's more than enough. But the worry remained. The problem is tomorrow. Nagi will return. What then? Ranson's eyes shone with steely determination, facing the uncertain future. Ranson looked at his mechanical hand, thinking to himself, it seems I have no other choice but to use this. He gripped a royal artifact, determined to use it despite his reluctance. Ranson raised his hand, and the artifact emitted a brilliant azure magic circle. Standing in the wooden room, he gazed intently at the energy he had just summoned. To protect the children, he decided to sell a treasure of the Van Roa royal family to raise funds. He knew the royal seal would be hunted by the Empire, so the only thing worth selling could only be the Book of Destiny, an item that appeared from the magic circle. Ranson held the book in his hand, not understanding why it was considered a treasure. Ancient script characters glowed on the pages as he opened it. They floated up from the paper, emitting a mysterious energy. He was astonished to read the words. Year 4670, 3 Ruceris calendar, March 17th. The sect's secret chapel filled with ominous symbols. Ranson asked himself in shock. Huh? Why can I read this ancient script? Suddenly, a blinding light from the book engulfed him. A golden medallion fell into the void. It sank into the water, creating a spreading ripple. In the room, the night wind gently stirred the window curtain. Ranson and the book had completely vanished without a trace. Ranson awoke with a start, realizing he was in a completely unfamiliar place. He was startled to find himself running with other cloaked figures. He wondered why he was running when he had just read the Book of Destiny. He realized this wasn't an illusion. It was completely real. And this place was a familiar place, clearly the Ilneon dungeon. But why did it look so new? He stood frozen amidst the cloaked figures, not understanding what was happening. A hooded figure with glowing red eyes spoke. An intruder has entered the chapel. He ordered his subordinates. Protect the elixir first. Ranson was stunned when he heard the two words, elixir. Ranson realized that the structure of this place was identical to the Ilneon dungeon, yet completely new, and the elixir had been unearthed here in the year 4673, according to the Ruceris calendar. He was shocked to conclude that he had traveled 10,000 years into the past. Ranson's metal prosthetic leg stepped on the cold stone floor. He entered a large area where a group of black-robed cultists were gathered. Ranson thought to himself, it's all real. As he saw the elixir vial placed reverently on the altar, he was certain that he had truly returned to the past, and the elixir was right before his eyes. One of the cultists grinned sinisterly, pleased that the elixir was still safe. Ranson stood surrounded, determined that if he could just obtain it, he would reclaim everything he had lost. He silently counted. There were a total of 12 people around him. Gripping his sword hilt, Ranson considered acting immediately to seize the elixir. Suddenly, the leader of the cultist group ordered, before taking the offering, split into pairs and search for the intruder. He began assigning Kaltik, Krum, to the east passage, Sirung, Totun, to the west passage. Then he pointed towards Ranson. Saruas Ranson to the north passage. Ranson was stunned, unable to believe that these people from the past knew his name and considered him an ally. He suddenly thought of the Book of Fate and wondered what it truly was to be able to create such an absurd outcome. The one called Saruas approached and patted Ranson's shoulder, urging, "What are you still standing there for? Hurry up," Saruas said, then turned and walked away. Ranson decided to follow for now, both to gather information and to seek an opportunity. He and Saruas walked together down the dark corridor. They continued to patrol along the ancient stone walls. Suddenly, both stopped when they saw a platinum-haired man blocking their path. The stranger let out a long breath, and the atmosphere grew tense. Ranson sensed danger, and cold sweat began to break out. The stranger suddenly lunged forward like a ghost. He swung his sword, and crimson killing intent enveloped the space. A powerful slash carrying a stream of purple energy was unleashed. Ranson thought to himself, "What is that transparent mist?" Immediately, a brilliant purple slash surged forward, blocked by Ranson's blue sword with a deafening clang. He clenched his mechanical hand, bracing himself to defend. However, the opponent's power was too great, pushing Ranson backward. He muttered, "The durability is terrible," but both stood facing each other, their purple and blue sword auras still growling. The blade. Ranson looked worriedly at his weapon. He realized the blade was chipped, a truly strange power. Ranson's face showed clear tension. A drop of cold sweat trickled down. The blonde swordswoman was also highly vigilant. Sword aura? No, there's something very strange. Ranson smirked. So I'm not the only one who finds it strange. He decided to try again, channeling blue energy into his sword. But then, an unexpected sight made Ranson freeze. Two grimy children were trembling in fear, hiding behind a pillar. The swordswoman also noticed them. She was astonished. "Why are children here?" She turned and glared at Ranson, standing in front of the children. "Have you no shame? A swordsman consorting with child, kidnapping cultists." Ranson froze as she roared. "Are you planning to use them as living sacrifices?" The accusation inadvertently brought back a distant memory of a warm family meal. In that memory, Ranson once had such a radiant and happy smile. The flashback was cut short by the sound of his allies rushing over. "What's going on?" a cultist asked worriedly. "Has Saruas been taken down by the intruder?" The leader growled an order. "Combine your strength," then unleashed a powerful slash that tore through space. The swordswoman screamed in horror. "What is this?" Amidst the chaos, Ranson suddenly turned to her and proposed, "Let's be on the same side." The abrupt proposal left the swordswoman completely stunned. The cultists rushed down the corridor, heading towards the sound. One of them screamed in terror. "There he is!" upon witnessing a strange platinum-haired swordsman having just taken down their comrade. Before the blood-soaked corpse, he frantically yelled. Was he ambushed? Quick, help Ranson. At the same time, Ranson and the blonde swordswoman were fiercely clashing, their swords sparking against each other. Under his hood, Ranson maintained an unusual calm. Suddenly, the platinum-haired swordsman emerged from the shadows and attacked one of the approaching cultists. Stabbed from behind, the cultist gasped in shock. You! He collapsed, bitterly uttering his last words. Why would you betray me? Fresh blood splattered, ending the unfortunate man's life. On the battlefield, Ranson and the female swordsman stood facing each other beside the fresh corpse. Ranson smiled meaningfully at the girl. Thanks to your little act, killing him was a piece of cake. The female swordsman had no idea what was happening. What act? He recklessly charged at me. I merely defended myself, Ranson said nonchalantly, despite the girl fuming with anger. He continued, just keep helping me like this. A new figure appeared. The cultist with sinister fangs muttered, this guy is truly unpredictable. He stepped over the corpses, asking Ranson, so, this is a betrayal? The cultist bared his fangs and grinned with delight. Not bad at all. The vengeful spirit of one who died bitterly from betrayal. He continued, while Ranson and the female swordsman remained silently vigilant. Add to that the chaotic nature of betrayal itself. And with the soul of a noble knight, the Lord will be even more pleased, he concluded, his gaze fixed on the female swordsman. The girl cursed inwardly. Damn it, I should have called for reinforcements. I didn't expect a high-ranking expert to appear here. Cold sweat broke out. She knew she was facing an enemy far beyond her imagination. Behind her, the kidnapped children trembled in fear. She gritted her teeth, telling herself, I am a mid-level expert. I can't fight him alone. First, I must attack to find an opening, she decided, then charged forward. Her sword flared with purple light, tracing a deadly arc towards the cultist. A dazzling energy explosion occurred at the point of impact. The female swordsman was horrified as a surprise attack exploded on her shoulder. Her sword retaliated, creating a fierce energy blast. As the smoke and dust cleared, she lunged forward with eyes burning with hatred. Her sword pierced the fanged cultist's chest. However, he merely flashed a mad grin, showing no sign of pain. The female swordsman was stunned, unable to believe what was happening. Just then, Ranson appeared, dark energy swirling around him. He stepped forward, the ground beneath his feet seemingly swallowed by darkness. In a flash, Ranson descended from above like a phantom. A cold, azure sword strike slashed across the cultist. The female swordsman was shocked to realize an artifact on his chest was glowing brightly. Ranson froze, his attack blocked. The powerful slash was completely nullified by the artifact. The cultist sneered, huh? If not for this, would I have died? The battle erupted again, purple and blue sword energy simultaneously assailing the common enemy. Ranson strained to parry, thinking, this thing is dangerous. I can't predict his sword path. The cultist grinned sinisterly as a dark illusion of the female swordsman appeared behind him. Despite the situation, the female swordsman bravely parried his attack. She turned and yelled at Ranson. What the hell are you doing? Ranson retorted. Your sword energy has color. Why is it so weak? The cultist burst out laughing. Don't you see? What good is colored sword energy when facing a half-baked swordsman who can't read the sword's heart? Seizing the opportunity, he swung his sword, delivering a deep slash to the female swordsman. She was sent flying, sliding across the cold stone ground. With eyes burning red with killing intent, the cultist bared his fangs, grinned, and raised his sword, preparing to finish her off. Farewell, Ranson, he said. But Ranson merely bowed his head, muttering in a rage. You just called me a half-baked swordsman? Ranson recalled the humiliations he had endured to become a swordmaster. Rage surging, he roared. Let's see if this is half-baked. Take this. A new skill was unleashed. Threat of Radiance. Ranson charged forward, unleashing an attack with all his remaining strength. The cultist was stunned by the surge of power on a completely different level, but he quickly regained his composure, using dark magic to block Ranson's sword. He scoffed. For a half-baked swordsman who cannot comprehend the sword's heart. With a cruel expression, the cultist poured his strength into a counterattack. He roared, determined to finish off his opponent. Ranson was mercilessly knocked back. His sword shattered into pieces. He collapsed to the ground, fresh blood continuously gushing from his mouth. The blonde swordswoman could only helplessly watch the scene in horror. Ranson staggered to his feet, his desperate gaze fixed on another cultist's corpse. He rushed over, frantically searching the body. Please, please be there. His mechanical hand finally found a small wooden box. He opened the box, revealing a vial of glowing blue medicine, and Ranson was ecstatic. He tremblingly brought the vial to his mouth, believing it was his only salvation. What are you doing? The swordswoman suddenly rushed over, grabbing his hand tightly. The precious vial flew from Ranson's hand, and then shattered on the cold ground, extinguishing his last glimmer of hope. The swordswoman cried out in alarm as Ranson collapsed, unconscious. In another space, a golden pocket watch slowly sank into darkness. A distant memory was resurfacing. At the same time, in a desolate place under the moonlight, a figure was anxiously looking out. The red-haired girl wondered where her younger brother had gone, her heart heavy with a belated apology. The red-haired girl arrived in front of a wooden house, wondering, "He wasn't here earlier. I wonder if he's back yet." As soon as she opened the door, her eyes immediately widened in horror. Before her eyes, Ranson lay slumped on the floor, unconscious. She cried out in panic. "Brother!" Ranson was carried inside, his hands still clutching something. A burly man carefully pulled a blanket over him. In the warm room, the girl sat by the bedside, while the man stood with his arms crossed, observing. She insisted, "I'll stay by his side," and the man replied, "All right, call me when he wakes up." The girl nodded slightly. Yes, when only the two of them remained, she quietly sat by the bed, her eyes filled with sadness. She thought to herself about her sleeping brother. "He's stronger than any of us. At times like this, I feel so ashamed I want to die." Suddenly, Ranson stirred, startling her into attention. In his delirium, memories of the battle flooded back. "No, I only drank half." Ranson woke with a start, sitting up and gasping for breath. He sat on the bed, sweating profusely, confusedly asking himself, "Huh?" Turning around, he was stunned to see his sister, muttering, "I'm back again. Was it a dream?" The girl joyfully asked in a rush. "Brother, you're awake. Why did you disappear, and why are you covered in blood like this?" Ranson remained silent, making her even more confused. Suddenly he smirked. "You just called me brother, didn't you?" Seeing her blush and deny, "When did I?" he continued to tease. "Were you crying? Your eyes are red and your cheeks are swollen." She was both embarrassed and angry. "Yes, I was worried. Am I not allowed to be worried?" Ranson gently patted her head. "Thank you, Daisy," and she mumbled in protest. "I'm not a child anymore." He smiled, thinking to himself that it had been a long time since he'd teased Daisy like this. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hit him, making him clutch his head. Ranson stumbled forward. Daisy cried out in alarm. "Brother!" In his daze, Ranson smiled peacefully, telling himself, "No pain. This isn't a dream, it's real." Daisy gasped in astonishment as Ranson sat up. "My body?" "Yes," Ranson replied, and then his mechanical arm fell apart onto the bed. Immediately after, his prosthetic leg also detached, revealing his healthy legs. Ranson stood up, his body completely whole, declaring, "It's back." Daisy could only gape, completely speechless at the unbelievable sight. "I'm back," Ranson shouted, but Daisy reeled from the suddenness of it all. But then he suddenly collapsed, followed by Daisy's panicked cry, "Brother!" Back in reality, Ranson woke up and heard his sister's joyful voice. "See? I told you they'd grow back." Ranson opened his eyes in confusion, not understanding what was happening. The entire family, including Daisy, Burson, and others, rushed into the room with expressions of extreme astonishment. Burson couldn't hold back his tears, stammering, "Ranson, a miracle. How could this happen?" Ranson calmly explained, "I drank the elixir," making Burson shout, "A single sip costs over 50,000 dalens, and you dared to drink it?" "Wait," Ranson said. "Before that, there's something I want to check." He stood up and reassured a worried Burson. "I'll need a bit of rehabilitation, but I'll be fine." His hand rested on a small wooden box on the cabinet. Ranson turned back and suggested, "More importantly, Uncle Burson, could you come with me?" And the man, surprised, agreed. In a cold stone room, Ranson stated firmly, "I'm certain the elixir was placed on that altar." Burson confusedly asked why they were there, and Ranson replied that he himself couldn't believe the situation. "So, I want to check it," he said, then opened the box, revealing a glowing silver key. A memory flashed in Ranson's mind about this area once being extremely strictly guarded. He deduced that this key was used to open a secret space. The key in Ranson's hand flared with brilliant light, drawing a colossal magic circle. He inserted the key into the center, activating the magic gate on the stone wall. Both Ranson and Burson were stunned, Ranson exclaiming, "Wah, what is this?" Before their eyes was a secret treasure vault, with chests of gold and a strange outfit on a mannequin. Ranson muttered. The gold coins alone were worth 5,000 dalens, not to mention artifacts, ancient swords, ancient armor, and even rare magical tools. Burson couldn't believe it. He stammered, "Ranson, what's going on? First your limbs grew back, now this." Ranson turned away, running a hand through his hair. "I can't believe it myself." He turned back, his gaze firm, and revealed a shocking truth. "I traveled to this place from 10,000 years in the past." Burson was speechless, only able to utter one word. "What?" Ranson raised a hand to his mouth, confirming to himself, "So it's true. It's all true." He sank into thought. If the power of this artifact wasn't one-time use, If he could return to the past again and again, then he could achieve anything. Ranson cut off his thoughts, saying to his stunned uncle, "Uncle," his eyes turned cold. "There's something I need to do first." Memories flooded back with the image of a red-eyed, black-haired man exhaling contentedly. He lounged on a luxurious bed, surrounded by countless corpses, muttering to himself, "Now this is living. I wonder what fun awaits me today." With a sinister smile, he decided. Then, he stood up, ordering his 2 bowing subordinates. "Let's go meet that good-for-nothing Ranson." The room door slowly creaked open. The red-eyed, black-haired man was surprised to see a figure standing outside. "Huh? What is this?" He recognized Ranson standing tall in the cold rain and scoffed. "Ranson? You came all this way to greet me?" But then he froze, clenching his fists as he realized the impossible. "No, how are your limbs?" Panic-struck, he yelled at his subordinates. "Go, quickly report to the Lord. Report that Ranson has recovered his energy core. You 2 split up, go as fast as you can." Amidst the chaos, Ranson silently drew his sword. He lunged like lightning, his blade glowing with a deadly blue light. The red-eyed, black-haired man only just realized the imminent danger. A powerful surge of sword energy struck him directly in the chest. The sharp sword tip pierced through his ribcage. Ranson finished off his enemy with a decisive thrust, fresh blood splattering. The 2 subordinates were flung far away. The red-eyed, black-haired man was stunned. "What? How can this be?" Facing him, Ranson stood with an icy expression. Both soldiers collapsed after a single blow. "How could you?" he stammered, disbelieving his eyes. Ranson's deep blue eyes showed no waver. A surge of dark energy gathered in his palm. Immediately, Ranson lunged like a phantom. The enemy hastily drew his sword. He swung his sword, blocking the incoming dark energy. He sneered. "Are you planning to fight me with a mere wisp of aura, not a sword aura? Your core hasn't fully recovered, has it?" he scoffed, revealing his fangs. Without a word, Ranson drew his sword. His voice rang out coldly. "So what? Then take this," Ranson said, swinging his sword, and a blue aura erupted. His opponent strained, yelling, "I'm different from 3 years ago. I am a noble, one with the direct bloodline of a count. This body possesses superior physique and immortal regeneration. Above all, if I combine it with this vampire aura, then even if my opponent is a swordmaster, they're no match." But Ranson slash-cut through all defenses. That was the last word he managed to utter. A clean sword stroke, and the head separated from the neck. The head fell to the floor, its bloodshot red eyes still wide open. Ranson knelt, watching his enemy's body vanish in a blinding white flame. He told himself, "My core has recovered, but I'll have to gather the scattered aura again." The memory of the battle ended, revealing an abandoned mine under the sunlight. Daisy asked skeptically, "Did you really go back to the past and drink an elixir?" Ranson affirmed, "That's right. I returned to the past thanks to a royal treasure of Vanroa." Bersun wondered, "So, can you go back to the past again?" Ranson replied, "I don't know. It hasn't reacted since then." A new woman spoke up. She was C. Milan. Perhaps an artifact created during the Age of Magic could do that, Ranson mused. No matter how ancient the technology, can such a small object truly contain divine power? Daisy suddenly realized a contradiction. Wait, what about the elixir discovered 200 years ago? If you drank it 10,000 years ago, then it couldn't have been discovered 200 years ago. Ranson was startled. "Ah, that's right." Daisy looked bewildered, not understanding. Ranson explained, "Oh, I see. I only drank half and then returned." Ranson turned to Bersun and asked, "Is there any information stating that only half of the elixir was discovered 200 years ago?" Bersun shook his head. "I've never heard anything about the quantity." Ranson sighed. "If that's the case, it's impossible to know." He reasoned, "We can't know if a complete vial of elixir was discovered, or if history changed and only half was found because I drank it," C. Milan said seriously. "But what's certain is that if you can return to the past again, what you do could change this entire world." She got straight to the point. "If you could change the past, what would you want to achieve?" Ranson fell into thought. "What I want to achieve is revenge for my parents and siblings who were lost in a single night." Memories of his own tear-stained, youthful face from that day flooded back. "And that is my duty as the last royal descendant of Vanroa, to rebuild the kingdom of Vanroa," Ranson declared. "Of course, first I must kill Count Klaus." The image of his sworn enemy, Count Klaus, appeared in his mind. Ranson recalled a past mistake. "I believed that my family's safety would be guaranteed if I became a vassal of Lord Kushan. But," he gritted his teeth, "if only I had known sooner that happiness gained by borrowing the hands of others could never be stable." C. Milan worried. "But Count Klaus is very strong. He was already a sword master, and now he has obtained Delkachu's true blood. How strong is he now?" Ranson dismissed it. "This isn't a choice. Now that I've recovered, How will Caselas react when he learns how insane I've become? He declared to everyone. This is an unavoidable war. Ranson began to outline the plan. The monthly tax report due to Count Klaus will be due in 3 weeks, Ranson asserted. We must resolve everything before then. Under the clear blue sky, a new resolve was kindled. In the ruined arena, Ranson faced the past alone, his hand gripping the sword hilt tightly. He closed his eyes, trying to feel the soul of the weapon, searching for a new path. In his mind, Ranson reimagined the sword art that the cult leader had used 10,000 years ago. It was a tenacious and solid sword art, one that had once defeated even the mightiest warriors. Even blades imbued with sharp energy shattered before that power. The voice of the fanged cultist echoed, "What good is a flashy aura blade? You're just a half-baked swordsman who can't read the sword's mind." The taunt still lingered. Ranson cast aside distracting thoughts. He felt as if he was conversing with the sword itself. No, more than that, he felt as if he had become one with it. He suddenly opened his eyes wide, a flash of enlightenment. Smiling confidently, Ranson realized, "Now that I've tried it myself, I understand." The sword in his hand flared with a mystical purple energy, and he affirmed, "This is definitely not an aura." Just then, Daisy rushed over, shouting, "Brother, something terrible has happened." She was breathless, delivering shocking news. "It's the Count, Klaus." Ranson was stunned, his mind immediately turning to the Count's gloomy castle. Meanwhile, at that very castle, a subordinate knelt and reported, "My lord, I have invited Ranson's family to arrive in 3 days." Count Klaus sat on his throne, a sinister smile spreading across his face. "I have waited for a very long time." He revealed his demonic nature, growling, "The nobles of the Van Roa kingdom. It's finally time to use them as sacrifices." Back in the meeting room, Ranson thoughtfully analyzed. "The tax report isn't due for another 3 weeks, yet he suddenly invited us." Bursun worriedly hypothesized. Could it be that he realized Ranson has regained his body and killed Nagi? But Ranson immediately dismissed it. Bursun pointed out the core issue. "This sudden invitation ruins our plan to assassinate the Count." Simolan continued with a serious expression. "Our only chance is to attack when Count Klaus performs the ritual," making Ranson ask in surprise. "A ritual?" Simolan explained. "Yes, ever since what happened to you, once a month, the Count leaves the castle to perform a secret ritual alone." Daisy added with a horrified expression, confirming that she herself had seen Klaus's men abducting children. Simolan revealed an even more horrifying truth. They even wiped out villages that couldn't pay taxes, using corpses and children as sacrifices for the ritual. Ranson was aghast. To serve an unknown entity, he prepares both corpses and living sacrifices? Forget the Kislas everyone once knew. The young man bitterly realized. While I was confined to my home by my injuries, the outside world had changed too much. Ranson turned to Simolan and asked, "How do you know all of this?" Simolan calmly replied, "I have my own intelligence network." Ranson was alarmed, realizing Simolan had put herself in danger, but then quickly composed himself. Simolan seriously brought the conversation back to the main issue. "The problem is, our plan has completely gone off track." Bursun broke the tension by teasing Ranson. "Sia, don't you think wandering alone in the city is too dangerous?" "She's 20, she's an adult now," which made the young man blush. Daisy hesitated, asking with a voice full of worry. "But, brother," she looked directly at her brother, voicing her greatest fear. "Can you truly defeat Caselas?" Ranson replied with a firm voice, "I must," then placed a special sword on the table. He gripped the hilt of his sword, declaring, "And with this sword, I truly have a chance." Bursun exclaimed in surprise upon recognizing the legendary weapon. The king's sword. It was a blade forged from the aura of silver steel that fell from the sky. Ranson tightened his grip around the sparkling sword hilt. He raised the sword high, explaining confidently, "Evil beings like vampires cannot stand against this sword." Simolan looked at Ranson, her gaze firm. "All right, I'll trust you. If we fail, we'll die together." Ranson was stunned by her words. Simolan smiled, dispelling the heavy atmosphere. "I'm just kidding." She quickly returned to a serious expression. "Anyway, we need another way to kill Count Klaus." Ranson concluded the meeting with a resolute gaze. "It's risky, but for now, it's our only option." Meanwhile, in Luera village, a peaceful scene unfolded with children playing happily. 3 boys excitedly showed each other the giant mushrooms they had just found. One of the boys happily ran ahead, urging his friends, "Let's go home and see whose is bigger." A giant mushroom suddenly fell to the ground. Immediately after, the entire village was engulfed in flames and desperate screams. The brown-haired boy was bewildered, not understanding what was happening. A soldier in iron armor mercilessly cut down a villager. Another coldly stabbed a man through the heart. The victims' bodies were haphazardly tossed into a wheelbarrow. The squad of guards stood tall amidst the flames, continuing their sweep. From afar, the soldiers' shouts echoed, vowing to leave no child alive. Another squad of soldiers, weapons in hand, was ready for action. The children realized in horror that they had been cornered. Just as a soldier was about to strike, the boy's eyes gleamed with despair. Suddenly, an arrow lodged directly into the soldier's helmet. 2 more enemies fell instantly from precise shots. The children turned in astonishment to look at the person who had just saved them. A strange archer with a beard appeared, gently asking, "Are you children all right?" The brown-haired boy, frightened, sobbed and asked for the man's identity. That man was Rivera Pietro. The children repeated the name Rivera in bewilderment. Another boy realized his identity. "You're a baron?" Rivera clenched his fist, asserting, "I'll explain later." He hastily herded the children away, stating, "First, we must get out of here." But one boy burst into desperate sobs, calling for his mother amidst the flames. Rivera gritted his teeth, realizing that taking down a few mere soldiers wouldn't solve the problem. Looking at the burnt-down village, he thought furiously of the mastermind. "Count, you've truly gone too far." In the dead of night, the Count's castle appeared eerily under the full moon. Inside the gloomy fortress, guards pushed heavy carts, leaving long trails of blood on the stone floor. Dozens of corpse carts were gathered in the courtyard, a horrifying sight under the cold night sky. Inside the carts were the bodies of innocent villagers, cruelly piled on top of each other. Dried blood stained the makeshift shrouds, evidence of a bloody massacre. A white-haired subordinate reported, "A total of 116 bodies, exceeding today's quota." Count Klaslas merely smirked savagely, revealing his hideous fangs. With glowing red eyes, he commanded, "I'll take care of the rest. You may withdraw." The subordinate respectfully bowed and obeyed, leaving the Count alone with his spoils. Count Klaas approached, his hand reaching out, ready to begin his dark ritual. A stream of dark red energy from the bodies began to flow into him, a gruesome sight. He whispered maliciously, "So, Ranson's lot will enter the castle tomorrow. Finally, the moment I've been waiting for has arrived." Standing on the balcony, he was unaware of a strange light that had just flashed from one of the carts. Suddenly, a hand reached straight up into the sky from within the pile of corpses. Count Kaslas started, spinning around, sensing something was amiss. That hand slowly clenched, without hesitation. Then it drew a sword hilt radiating a brilliant blue light. A terrifying energy explosion hurled Count Klaas backward. The Count was utterly bewildered, unable to believe what had just happened. Memories flooded back, C. Milan outlining the plan. According to intelligence, today they will load bodies from Luera village onto carts. You will pretend to be a corpse and infiltrate one of those carts. They will take you straight to the Count. Until then, suppress your mana, and strike when he is least expecting it. Back in the present, Count Kaslas blocked Ranson's blade, sneering, "Oh, if it isn't Ranson, what brings you here without a word of warning?" Ranson gritted his teeth, sweat trickling down his cheeks, thinking to himself, "This really isn't easy at all." The Count maintained his smug expression, easily parrying the prince's lightning-fast attack. Ranson gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead, thinking to himself, "Right, I knew it wouldn't be easy." Count Kaslas casually brushed aside the attack, his voice full of sarcasm. "So you've recovered. Found some elixir or something? Congratulations." The prince realized his tactics had reached their limit. Now there was only one path, to fight and win. Count Kaslas flashed a cruel smile, challenging, "Come on, Ranson," he growled, eager to witness his opponent's despair. Ranson took a deep breath, clearing his mind. Focus, he could feel it, the surge of power swirling within his sword. His eyes glowed with a blue light as he read the heart of the sword. Ranson stomped his foot and shot forward. 2 streams of sword energy, blue and red, clashed fiercely. Count Kaslas was pushed back a step, but quickly regained the initiative. He swung a wide, powerful strike. Ranson swiftly ducked, narrowly dodging. The Count's slash grazed past, shattering the ground behind him. Ranson stood firm, preparing for the next assault. Count Kaslas charged with an arrogant smile, swinging his sword downwards. Ranson raised his sword to block the blow, his eyes sharp. The Count was startled by the prince's resistance. Dark energy and holy light once again erupted violently. Seizing the opportunity, Ranson unleashed a decisive slash, tearing through the Count's shoulder. The blue sword energy swept past, leaving a dazzling streak of light. Both retreated, maintaining their distance after the exchange of blows. Blood gushed out, but Count Klaas merely smirked. He admitted, "Impressive. If my aura had been a little weaker, you would have taken my head. Truly, the people of the kingdom of Banroa are different." Count Klaas looked directly at his opponent, his voice firm. "You must be the second prince of Banroa, whose body was never found, correct?" Count Klaas curved his lips into an evil smile, commenting, "You truly are a rare specimen." He coveted Ranson's soul. "If I offer it, I will surely achieve everything I desire." Without a word in response, Ranson channeled blue energy into his sword. He unleashed a powerful slash towards the Count. Count Klaas easily blocked the attack, scoffing, It's useless, no matter how many times you try. Your sword cannot pierce my aura. Just then, a blue flame erupted from Ranson's left eye. A torrent of dark and blue energy violently burst forth, pushing back Count Class. The two sources of power collided, creating an earth-shattering explosion. Meanwhile, in a nearby town, the night remained quiet. Several men were sitting outside a tavern, unaware of the deadly battle. A subordinate asked Rivera Pietro, "Captain, why have you called all of us here? Are you planning something serious?" The soldier asked with concern. Rivera replied with a serious expression, "No, I received intelligence that something unusual is about to happen." Another person asked curiously, "What kind of intelligence?" Suddenly, the group was startled and panicked as they felt a tremor from afar. Someone shouted, "What was that?" In the sky, two auras, blue and red, clashed fiercely, making them realize, it's Count Class's aura. The soldiers were stunned, wondering who was fighting such a terrifying opponent. Who would dare to do something so audacious? Rivera said, then raised his binoculars to observe. Someone quickly handed him the binoculars. Rivera squinted, focusing on the epicenter of the battle. Through the lens, the sight of Ranson confronting the Count appeared, leaving him stunned. "Wait, that's..." He couldn't believe his eyes as he uttered the name. "Ranson?" The others were also astonished. "You mean Ranson? Has he really recovered?" In a memory, Milan once told Rivera, "This is your last chance. An opportunity that will never come again." A memory flashed back. Milan sternly warned, "Think carefully. Seize this chance, or miss it and regret it for life." Rivera Pietro's forehead was drenched in sweat, his heart full of doubt. Does he really think he can kill the Count? He keeps talking about being a rebel army, but at most, we've only saved a few children. If we join him, we'll all just throw our lives away. Back in the present, a subordinate impatiently stood up. "Captain, are we just going to stand here and watch?" Rivera lowered his head, clenched his fists, tormenting himself. "We have to do something." But then, he could only utter a bitter apology. "I'm sorry." Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Ranson's sword clashed with Count Kislas's, sending sparks flying. Pushed back by the shockwave, Ranson remained unfazed. He roared in his mind, "One more time," then swung his sword to attack. Count Kislas braced himself, his dark blade blocking Ranson's strike. Ranson gritted his teeth, determined to press his opponent. "One more time." The Count smirked arrogantly, easily neutralizing the prince's power. With a final roar, Ranson poured his entire being into the sword strike. "One more time." The complacent look on Count Klaus's face vanished, replaced by incredulous shock. The blue blade had pierced through his defenses, leaving a cut on his neck. Stunned, he reached up to touch the bleeding wound. Rage flared and he growled, "You bastard." Facing him, Ranson panted but wore a defiant smile. Under the cold moonlight, the ruined castle bore witness to the life-or-death confrontation. Suddenly, Count Kislas smiled. "Ah, yes, a truly impressive sword strike." Ranson remained silent, wary of his opponent's sudden change in demeanor. The Count continued, his voice condescending. "Perhaps one day, it will pierce through me." He sneered as shadows emerged behind him. "Of course, that's if you can keep reaching me." As soon as he finished speaking, his dark subordinates simultaneously charged towards Ranson. Ranson took a stance, the sword in his hand flaring with blue energy. He plunged into battle, cutting down the swarming dark subordinates. He gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath. "Damn vampires. I hid among the corpses just to face Klaus one-on-one." But his minions kept appearing endlessly, with no end in sight. Ranson's face showed clear tension as he realized the disadvantageous situation. He thought desperately, "At this rate, I'll fall before I can even reach Klaus." Amidst the encirclement, Count Klaus sneered, gathering dark energy in his hand. A powerful surge of dark energy blasted Ranson backward. Despite being overwhelmed, he remained determined. "I have to finish them quickly." Count Kislas roared with delight, raising his sword, preparing to deliver a finishing blow. Just then, Ranson flinched as he sensed another surge of energy. A silver arrow, enveloped in a golden aura, tore through the night. The arrow struck a dark subordinate directly in the head just before it could pounce on Ranson. The shadowy creature shrieked once, then disintegrated into dust. The Count's soldiers were stunned. "It's a silver arrow." They imbued the arrow with an aura. "Who is it?" Ranson turned his head in surprise, looking towards where the arrow had been shot from. Rivera Pietro, whom he hadn't expected, stood there with a bow in his hand. A familiar voice rang out as a red-brown-haired young man waved. "Brother, we're here too," Ranson exclaimed in shock. "Salzran?" Then he saw Sia, her face as cold and serious as ever. Beside her was Daisy, hand already on her sword hilt, eyes burning fiercely. And finally, Ranson couldn't believe his eyes. "Even Seclin?" Seclin roared, ordering his troops. "Kill them all! All the bastards I want to kill are here!" Responding to the call, Rivera Pietro drew his bow. another energy arrow ready to be fired. C. Milan also shouted, extending her hand forward, preparing to join the battle. Rivera Pietro's silver arrows tore through the night, striking down the Count's minions. Reinforcements poured in like a storm. Daisy, Seclin, Salzran, and C. Milan, fighting fiercely amidst the enemy encirclement. Ranson was stunned, shouting in worry, "No, what if you all get hurt? Why did everyone come here?" Daisy replied, her voice resolute. "Why do you always want to do everything yourself? We've all grown up," she declared loudly, her eyes blazing. "This is a battle we must all bear together." Salzran swung his sword, smiling brightly. "That's right." He turned to encourage. "So, brother, just focus on the Count." Ranson was astonished by the maturity and trust of his comrade. He smiled, telling himself it was time he stopped seeing them as children needing protection. The prince gripped his sword hilt tightly, his resolve surging. His gaze sharpened, locking onto his sole target. Facing him, Count Klaas stood, enveloped in dark aura, a sneer of arrogance on his face. Ranson channeled energy into his legs, preparing for a lightning-fast dash. His sword was drawn, radiating pure blue light. "I'll deal with the one I have to face," Ranson declared. Count Kaeslas bared his fangs, smiling hideously. "Let's start by tearing off your arm," he growled as his right arm began to transform. In the blink of an eye, his arm swelled, transforming into a monstrous, giant claw. The dark claw lunged forward, carrying destructive power aimed directly at Ranson. Ranson calmly extended his hand, and a mysterious surge of energy began to activate. A brilliant golden defensive magic circle appeared, blocking the demon's claw. Ranson braced himself, enduring the terrifying pressure from the impact. A dazzling explosion of light erupted, engulfing both of them. Count Klaas froze, his face revealing an expression of unbelievable horror. His mighty right arm had been blown away, disintegrating into dust in the air. Count Kaeslas screamed in panic. "What the hell?" Ranson held up the shattered necklace, growling, "It's a protective necklace, you bastard." The protective artifact finally shattered completely, falling to the ground. It was a necklace found within these very ruins. Though broken, it had perfectly fulfilled its duty. Having lost his right arm, Count Klaas staggered back in shock. He gritted his teeth, realizing a truth. After an all-out attack, an opening always appears. This was the moment for Ranson to unleash the trump card he had always kept hidden. A mystical blue energy began to envelop the sword. Ranson whispered, his mind and sword becoming one. He opened his eyes wide, his gaze sharp, and swung a sword strike, initiating his ultimate move. A colossal whirlwind of sword energy was generated, stirring the very space. Count Klaas roared in fury. "How dare you? To me, Klaas." He swung his sword in retaliation, shouting, "You are the one who will die here, Ranson." Two streams of energy, the blue of swordsmanship and the red of darkness, collided violently. The blue whirlwind proved superior, easily tearing through and engulfing the opponent's attack. Count Klaas was sucked into the energy vortex, his face contorted in terror. Under immense pressure, the protective aura around his neck cracked open. Seizing the golden opportunity, Ranson poured all his strength into the finishing blow. He unleashed a powerful, direct thrust, tearing through the air. Count Kaeslas's eyes widened, reflecting the deadly blue light rushing towards him. The sharp sword tip reached the Count's throat. Ranson gasped, maintaining his stance after delivering the decisive attack. Silent night and falling snow enveloped the ruined castle. Count Klaas screamed in horror as he was sent flying by a surge of deep blue sword energy. Ranson stood firm after delivering the decisive blow, the sword in his hand still glowing brightly. Under the moonlight, Ranson coldly turned his back, leaving the fallen Count Klaas behind. Count Klaas lay sprawled on the ground, his eyes wide and lifeless, black blood oozing from the corner of his mouth. Ranson silently looked down at his defeated foe. "You, that thing, is it a sword spirit?" Count Klaas gasped with his last breath. Ranson explained, "I merely tried combining ancient sword chi with sword aura." He couldn't believe it. A sword spirit. The mark of a great swordmaster? The desolate scene of the castle appeared, evidence of a fierce battle. A Count soldier suddenly clutched his chest, coughing up a mouthful of thick black blood. Amidst the battlefield, Salzran and Daisy were astonished to see the enemies suddenly weaken and collapse. In another direction, the blue-haired man wondered, what's suddenly wrong with them? Are they having a fit? Rivera Pietro was stunned, seemingly having realized the cause. He quietly approached from behind Ranson. Count Klaas's body disintegrated into black dust while Rivera Pietro whispered, He actually killed Crucius." Rivera Pietro called out, "Ranson." Ranson replied, "Ah, Rivera. So you really did kill Crucius." Rivera Pietro explained, "According to records, vampires who lose their master will go mad within a day or two. So after a few days they'll return to normal?" Ranson asked in surprise, and Rivera Pietro replied, "That's right. Which means now is our chance to wipe out the remaining forces." Rivera Pietro formally requested, If your highness permits, I shall eliminate all these bloodsuckers before nightfall. Ranson smiled and replied, Permit? We are the ones who need your help. Rivera Pietro bowed, his voice filled with emotion. Thanks to you, Ranson. We have avenged our comrades. Thank you, truly. Ranson merely smiled with relief. He extended his hand and said, I'm counting on everyone. Let's work together to make this city a livable place. Rivera Pietro was completely taken aback by the young man's vision and humility. Rivera Pietro pulled an object from his coat. I was supposed to tell your highness later, but since you've suddenly rushed in, I'll tell you now. He solemnly presented an emblem. This is the family crest of House Pietro. 300 years ago, my family was also one of Gloriana's nobles. Please accept it, your highness, Rivera Pietro pleaded. Ranson was astonished as he received the heirloom. Rivera Pietro bowed and swore, From this moment forth, I shall serve your highness as my liege. The ruined cityscape appeared, signaling a challenging path of reconstruction. A blue-haired woman standing in the shadows remarked, I had guessed he would even hand over his family crest. Ranson confronted her. Do you know Rivera? The girl replied, More or less. Where do you think I get all my intelligence from? I obtained it by helping him out here and there. Ranson was stunned by her confession. You risked aiding the rebels? Ranson questioned, while the girl awkwardly clarified. I only lent a small hand. The girl quickly changed the subject. Anyway, this benefits us. Let Rivera handle the remaining forces. Let's focus on digging up evidence of the Count's corruption. She continued to outline the plan. The more we expose him, the more the people will rally to our side. Ranson's eyes gleamed with determination as he agreed. Right. Ranson thought to himself, now that Crucius was dead, they needed the people's support to govern Kushan City. Therefore, they quickly gathered merchants and citizens from the city to form an investigation team, determined to collect evidence of the Count's crimes. Ranson and his new companion stood before an old chapel. He asked, Is this a chapel? The heavy door creaked open as they stepped inside. Inside was a vast space, plunged into darkness and an eerie silence. Doesn't look like anything special, Ranson remarked, while the girl also agreed. Yeah, he pointed towards a bizarre statue. That statue is especially creepy. Cold and unsettling, too. Hey, what's that? The girl suddenly exclaimed, pointing towards Ranson. Ranson looked down in surprise as something on his chest began to glow. A brilliant green light emanated from beneath his clothes. He pulled out a glowing artifact and wondered, why is it suddenly glowing like this? The intricate artifact intensely radiated green energy. Ranson raised his hand, trying to control the chaotic energy emanating from the artifact. It's glowing again. Just like last time, he murmured, his face showing clear worry as he looked at the book in his hand. The blue-haired girl crossed her arms, recognizing it as the Book of Destiny, and suggested, Should we open it? No, Ranson firmly stated. If we open it, I could be thrown back into the past, and this territory would fall into chaos. Hearing this, the girl agreed. You're right, put it away. Ranson nodded. Yeah, I have to put it away. Just as his hand was about to put the book away, a surge of green light suddenly erupted. The book snatched itself from his hand, hovering in midair, radiating dazzling light and mysterious ancient script. Magical text appeared. Year 4679. The master has returned after acquiring the sex treasure. Amidst the light, the image of a golden pendant bearing a six-pointed star symbol clearly emerged. The scene vanished as if the pendant had fallen into water, creating a ripple of destiny. Ranson woke up in a rattling carriage, wearing an unfamiliar cloak. He raised a hand to his forehead, wearily accepting the truth. So, I've really returned to the past. Where am I this time? He wondered, his eyes bewildered as he looked at the surrounding scenery. The carriage was crossing an endless expanse of grassland. He realized he wasn't alone. There were other cloaked figures in the carriage. But Ranson squinted, a sense of unease rising within him. He felt a terrifying pressure emanating from the man sitting opposite him. Suddenly the man opened his eyes, and a deep voice resonated. Awake, Ranson? Ranson was stunned, thinking to himself, this power, it's on a completely different level compared to that cult leader. By reflex, his hand immediately went to his sword hilt, ready for a fight to the death. The atmosphere in the carriage became taut as the two men silently faced each other. The stranger's sharp gaze pierced Ranson as he repeated the question. The young man couldn't help but shiver, the thought of the vast power difference once again flashing through his mind. His fingers tightened further around the sword hilt, his fighting instinct surging powerfully. Ranson remained still, but his entire body tensed, preparing for whatever was about to happen. Ranson broke out in a cold sweat, thinking, it's not just his aura. The mana of this entire area was swirling around him, an absurd power even for a grandmaster. The elderly man pulled down his hood, calling out, So, Ranson, he explained, we met by chance, and I took you as my disciple. Ranson was speechless, the question echoing in his mind. So this time, I have to be his disciple? The white-bearded man crossed his arms, wondering, when did I take this child as my disciple? And his subordinate replied, a week ago. You yourself showed interest and accepted him. He stroked his beard thoughtfully. Ah, that's right. I brought him here a week ago. Then he smirked mysteriously. How strange. Doesn't it feel like divine intervention? Ranson was confused. What? His heart filled with doubt about this man, so different from the cultists he had encountered. The man declared loudly, listen carefully. I am Grand Duke Raytina Celsius, and destroying the cultists is my ambition. He turned to Ranson Banroa. A week ago, you became my disciple, and now we are on our way to my castle. There, you will receive my teachings. Ranson couldn't understand. Why is he explaining his own situation to me? Raytina Celsius smiled confidently. I'm counting on you. I hope our purpose will be fulfilled. Ranson's eyes widened in horror, a terrifying thought flashing through his mind. Don't tell me. He's seen right through me? He sat in silence, trying to process the unbelievable situation. What the hell is going on? Ranson deduced. He sees me as an anomaly, yet he treats me kindly. Could it be? He knows something? He decided to play along, smiling and placing a hand on his chest. Master, it is an honor to be with you. Ranson probed. But are you truly all right? You don't even know who I am, do you? Secretly intending to test how much the man knew. Raytina Celsius calmly admitted. That's right. That's why this feeling is so strange. His gaze sharpened. But one thing I am certain of. If what is happening aligns with my purpose, then perhaps it is something I agreed to a long time ago. Ranson was stunned. What? Raytina Celsius explained vaguely. I'm not sure myself, it's just my feeling. A feeling? What kind of answer is that? Ranson was utterly bewildered. In response to his confusion, Raytina Celsius simply placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Ranson thought to himself, the current situation was truly too crazy and incomprehensible. Their carriage approached a colossal, magnificent gate. The wheels steadily rolled on the dirt road. The magnificent city of glowing steel finally appeared before their eyes. So, I've come all this way, Ranson mused. Raytina Celsius introduced. This is the city of knights where I live. Glowing steel. He explained that despite holding the title of Grand Duke, he had entrusted governance to his subordinates to focus on training the next generation. Along the way, he had diligently taught Ranson the knowledge and etiquette of this ancient era. Thanks to this, he was gradually able to adapt to his new life. Ranson told himself that since there was no way to return, he could only live fully in the present. He realized this world surpassed his homeland in both technology and swordsmanship, and he was determined to seize every opportunity. Raytina Celsius suddenly spoke. At the castle, I have another disciple. He added that she was a diligent girl with a righteous spirit, and Ranson replied cautiously. The Grand Duke's castle appeared, majestic and imposing. Upon arrival, Ranson was stunned to encounter a blonde female knight. He was still bewildered by this unexpected meeting. The female knight looked at him with no less astonishment. Raytina Celsius stood between them, asking, Do you two know each other? The female knight replied to her master, confirming that this was the person who had helped her at the cultist chapel a year ago. Raytina Celsius suddenly remembered her mentioning someone who used unusual sword energy, and she confirmed that it was him. Excellent, Raytina Celsius said, then declared Ranson was now her junior disciple, leaving the female knight stunned. He explained that he had accepted Ranson as a disciple, but had been too busy to teach him yet. For now, you will be his instructor, Raytina Celsius ordered, leaving both disciples stunned. With that, he turned and went inside, saying he had to meet with the mages. Ranson stood there, breaking out in a cold sweat, muttering, Unbelievable, Ranson thought to himself, to meet her here again. And as the Grand Duke's disciple, he offered a polite smile, about to greet her, when the blonde girl cut him off. What the hell are you doing? Ranson froze, his hand instinctively tightening around his sword hilt. The girl put her hands on her hips, raising her voice. Is that how you greet your senior sister? Already acting like a senior sister after just meeting? Ranson's annoyance was clear. The girl declared loudly, Listen, kid, no matter how you lived before, from now on, you and I are the master's only disciples. She challenged, Am I wrong? And Ranson could only awkwardly admit, No, you're not. She continued her lecture. To avoid disgracing our master, we must be careful in every action. Always be neat, always be proper. Ranson thought with exasperation, What a rigid person. The girl pointed at his feet. When was the last time you polished those boots? Then she pointed at his cloak. And why is your cloak hanging so sloppily? And your hair? She continued to criticize, leaving Ranson bewildered. She concluded, Looking like that, you're no different from a bandit. Seeing Ranson staring at her, she snapped, What is it? Why are you staring at my hair? Ranson calmly retorted. With hair like yours, can you really say that? The girl froze, touched her hair, then blushed crimson with embarrassment. She ran off in embarrassment amidst the whispers of the other disciples. Good grief. She was just showing off to impress the new junior disciple. Ranson stood there, smiling faintly to himself. At a large training ground, the girl suddenly spoke up, introducing herself as Iodine Serum. Iodine Serum also stated that she served in the Grand Duke's Horizon Knights. She frankly admitted, honestly, you might even be stronger than me, junior disciple, but Master told me. You still can't use sword aura proficiently. Iodine gripped her sword hilt, asserting, true swordsmanship can only be learned through the clash of blades. She drew her sword, challenging, come on, draw your blade, junior disciple. It's time for your senior sister to teach you a lesson. Ranson's gaze sharpened, finally understanding. So this is why she suddenly dragged me to the training ground. Just so you know, this isn't me taking out my anger over that embarrassing incident earlier, Iodine Serum asserted. Ranson coldly retorted while drawing his sword. Fine. Words mean nothing before a blade. The knightess reiterated her stance. Don't misunderstand. The young man held his stance firm, the sword in his hand reflecting the light of his resolve. We cannot control mana directly, Iodine began her lecture mid-battle. Instead, we focus on the will of the sword's spirit. And that spirit has only one will. That is to cut. With that, she swung a powerful strike. Ranson's pupils constricted, reflecting the terrifyingly fast incoming strike. The two swords clashed fiercely, creating a powerful shockwave. Both strained to maintain their sword stances, neither willing to yield in this clash of power. Mana simply gathers to respond to that will. Iodine continued to explain even while clashing swords. Ranson gripped his sword hilt tightly, trying to feel and comprehend what she had just said. This is completely new to me. He smiled with interest as a new concept was enlightened. The two swords separated, ending the first exchange. Iodine stepped back, admitting, a body that can directly control mana is certainly an advantage, but never forget, technique is the foundation. She raised her index finger. Mana is merely the roof covering it. She concluded with a profound metaphor. Without a solid foundation, the house will collapse. Now, this time, try to use sword aura. Iodine turned her back, issuing a new challenge. Ranson closed his eyes, focusing his entire spirit according to the instruction. Energy began to gather around the sword hilt in his hand. All right, he opened his eyes, successfully enveloping the sword with a brilliant sword aura. Iodine crossed her arms, observing Ranson's achievement with a satisfied expression. She turned and walked away, seemingly having made her next decision for the training session. Iodine approached the weapon rack and chose another sword. Try using this sword. She handed a seemingly ordinary sword to Ranson. Ranson confusedly took the new sword, trying to channel his power but failing. Huh? He was surprised when the blade remained inert. The young man thought to himself, why isn't it working? Iodine Serim crossed her arms, calmly stating, just as I predicted. She began to explain to the attentively listening Ranson, sword aura is the external manifestation of the spiritual power contained within a sword. She said, that means, the better the blade, the stronger the spiritual power, while an image of Ranson's extraordinary old sword appeared. You could do it because your sword is too good. Iodine bluntly remarked, with your true skill level, you're just a low-level expert, barely an initiate. Ranson mumbled blankly. Low-level? Initiate? With sharp eyes, Iodine explained. The low-level stage is sword reading, where one can sense and follow the path it guides. The first thing you must do, junior disciple, she emphasized, is to have enough power to draw sword energy from any weapon. Ranson gripped the sword hilt tightly, his eyes gleaming with determination. He looked up, smiling confidently. All right. Tonight, we'll train hard. Night fell, leaving only a solitary figure diligently swinging a sword in the vast training ground. The next morning, Ranson lay sprawled on the ground, exhausted, and heard a call. Junior disciple Ranson. Iodine stood with hands on hips, looking down. Is this where you've decided to sleep now? She continued to scold the boy sitting on the ground. I told you to be tidy, not to disgrace our master, didn't I? Why are you still wearing yesterday's clothes? Ranson looked up and replied, because I didn't sleep. Immediately after, Ranson stood up, assumed a sword stance, his eyes intensely focused. His eyes glowed with an enchanting blue light. A stream of pure white sword energy began to envelop the ordinary blade. Ranson swung his sword decisively, creating a giant crescent moon of blue energy. Iodine was completely stunned, her mouth agape in astonishment at that power. You couldn't do it yesterday. How did you manage it after just one night? Ranson calmly replied. I trained all night. Iodine still couldn't believe it. Impossible. Even a genius would need at least a week. But this is amazing, she exclaimed. We can move straight to the advanced stage. Ranson smiled. Yes, thanks to you, senior disciple. A streak of blue sword energy shot past, signaling the start of the training match. Manhwa and Iodine Serum lunged at each other. Blue and yellow sword energy clashing fiercely, the two swords locked, sparking, neither willing to yield. Iodine gritted her teeth, putting all her strength into the move, determined not to lose to her new junior disciple. However, in the rapid exchanges, Ranson gradually gained the upper hand, continuously pushing her back. The other disciples watching couldn't help but be astonished, thinking, how can he be so good? They couldn't believe their eyes. Iodine is being overwhelmed. Cornered, Iodine decided to use her ultimate technique, she mumbled. Finally, I have to use sword faith. She stomped her foot, darting towards Ranson like an arrow. With glowing eyes, Iodine swung her sword from above, unleashing a full power attack. Ranson could only widen his eyes in astonishment at the terrifying speed of the technique, but in an instant, he vanished and reappeared right behind Iodine, his sword tip pressed against her neck. Iodine was stunned, completely unable to comprehend what had just happened. How are you? So fast. The match ended. Iodine lowered her sword, still reeling from Ranson's talent. She explained, that is the sword faith realm, where the sword moves on its own. Ranson mused. A realm where the blade strikes even before a thought is formed? Iodine announced. In 2 weeks, there will be an exchange event, and you will have to fight another true disciple. She added seriously. As the disciple chosen by Grand Duke Retina, all eyes will be on you, Ranson Manhwa. That's why you must advance at least one more rank before then. Ranson merely smiled in response. I understand. His face lit up with confidence and excitement. Now this is fun. Seeing her junior disciple's determination, Iodine turned away with a satisfied smile. In another corner, a contemptuous voice rang out. That fool Retina. The strange man looked towards the two of them. First he picked up an orphan girl, and now a stray ruffian. Cassigier Celsius appeared, walking with an arrogant air. I can't believe he would stoop so low as to take such trash as a disciple. Cassigier Celsius condescendingly remarked, I can't believe he would accept such worthless individuals as disciples. He muttered resentfully. If the Grand Duke's judgment is so poor, then I should have been the one to inherit. Iodine Serum quickly intervened. Senior disciple, many people are watching. Be careful with your words and actions, Cassigier snapped, pointing directly at her face. What? Are you lecturing me? Just because Retina declared you his heir, you think you're the Grand Duke now? He continued to sneer while Iodine could only grit her teeth and endure. He picked up a starving street child, raised them, and yet they're ungrateful. His venomous words were directed at Ranson. I heard the newcomer is just a low-level expert? What a pathetic bunch. Cassigier imperiously ordered. All right then, bring out the treasure that heretic Retina stole. But Iodine immediately refused. That's not allowed. It's not something to be casually shown off. Flatly refused. Cassigier roared in anger. Are you going to lecture me again? Ranson thought to himself. To keep such a scoundrel as family, perhaps the Grand Duke is just an ordinary person after all, before Iodine called him. Suddenly, Ranson drew his sword and spoke. So, would you like to verify those words? To see if Master's judgment is accurate? Cassigier froze at the sudden challenge. What? Ranson smiled provocatively. If my swordsmanship isn't trustworthy, let's have a match. If I lose, wouldn't that reinforce your words, senior disciple? Iodine frantically held him back. Ranson! While Cassigier sneered. How arrogant, he scoffed. Who in this world would fight a brat who isn't even old enough to be a disciple? Ranson calmly replied. Isn't it simple? He continued to taunt, further infuriating Cassigier. Why don't you silence everyone by defeating him with your immature skills? Veins popped on Cassigier's forehead. He was clearly enraged by Ranson's words. In the back, the other disciples were trying to hold back their laughter at the tense confrontation. Cassigier gritted his teeth, clenching his fists. Yes, you insolent brat. He turned and left, not forgetting to leave a threat. Let's see how long you can swagger around. Iodine anxiously watched his retreating back. While Ranson maintained a calm expression, she turned to Ranson, her voice full of alarm. Ranson, we're in big trouble. That senior disciple is petty. Who knows what tricks he'll pull at the upcoming gathering? Ranson turned to look at her, chuckling softly. Are you done laughing? Iodine blushed, awkwardly clearing her throat. Ahem. I misspoke just now. Ranson slung his sword over his shoulder, his eyes full of confidence. It's fine. Whatever tricks he pulls, we'll still win. Iodine Serum sighed, a hint of bewilderment on her face. But then she quickly regained her resolve, secretly deciding, all right then. Well then, let's continue training. Night fell, and countless stars twinkled in the sky. Under the dim light, Ranson Manhwa quietly strolled through the grounds, his hand still on his sword. Suddenly, he recognized a familiar figure and called out, Iodine? Iodine startled and turned around, surprised to see Ranson. Are you out training today too? She replied awkwardly, quickly changing the subject. Oh, yes. Are you stargazing? Realizing she had just slipped up, Iden secretly panicked. Oh, I accidentally used informal speech. Ranson sat down next to her, gently asking, "Want to watch together?" While Iden worried, "You won't scold me for not using honorifics, will you?" "No one's watching now," Ranson reassured her. "You're my lifesaver. I won't scold you for that." Iden could only reply with an "oh" while crossing her arms in a huff, and Ranson smiled with amusement. She then said seriously, "Anyway, I meant to say this sooner. I'm truly grateful. You saved me and the children." Ranson immediately teased. "If you're so grateful, how about using honorifics when it's just the two of us? I'm your benefactor and 3 years older than you know?" Which made Iden reply awkwardly, "Even so, using honorifics with a junior is a bit much." Ranson changed the subject. "By the way, do you like stargazing?" "Not just stars. I like to gaze at the 13 guardian stars," Iden replied, making Ranson curious. "The 13 guardian stars?" She explained that they were 13 stationary stars in the sky, named after the guardian deities. Ranson listened attentively, then asked, "Why do you like them?" Iadon pointed to a bright star and said it was Mivabar, the goddess of wisdom, the star that always rises directly overhead in this place. Her voice softened, carrying a distant sadness. "When I was little, I didn't know where I belonged." Ranson listened in silence as she continued. "But when I saw that star, I realized, this is where I belong." As soon as she finished speaking, Iadon suddenly stood up. "So, that's why I like gazing at the 13 guardian stars. Well, I'm leaving. I need to prepare for the special lecture." She hastily turned away, but Ranson exposed her. "Didn't you say you'd finished preparing that lecture a few days ago?" Watching her hasty retreating back, Ranson merely chuckled to himself. "Running away out of embarrassment. I see." The night passed, giving way to the brilliant dawn of a new day. Ranson Banroa and Iadon Sarum strode together down a grand corridor, heading towards the double doors. "Ready?" Iadon asked anxiously as she placed her hand on the door. "Ready," Ranson replied with a confident smile. The heavy double doors opened, revealing a dazzling light from outside. Before them was a vast training ground, where dozens of disciples were already lined up, waiting. Ranson couldn't help but be surprised. "Wow, that's a lot of people." Whispers arose from the crowd. "He's the Grand Duke's direct disciple? How corrupt." A disciple with a scar over his eye sneered. "We'll see about that." Ranson clearly felt the hostile gazes, thinking to himself, "Everyone looks like they want to devour me." He quickly regained his composure, his gaze resolute. "Right. Many people want this position, so they won't be fond of me." A supervisor stepped out and announced, "To commemorate this gathering, we shall begin the exhibition matches." The vast arena was quickly cleared to prepare for battle. Ranson calmly walked into the center of the arena, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his sword. A powerful stomp echoed from the opposite side. The challenger was none other than the disciple with the scar. He roared, "I don't know why the Grand Duke chose you as his direct disciple, but that will soon change. I will win and claim that position." Ranson remained silent, his expression unfazed by the provocation. The challenger narrowed his eyes, flashing a sinister smile. Ranson returned an enigmatic smile. He drew his sword, decisively accepting the challenge. "Anytime." Immediately, Ranson lunged forward with incredible speed. The two swords clashed, and Ranson easily blocked his opponent's attack. The challenger was stunned, unable to believe the power he had just felt. What kind of power is this? Ranson maintained his sword stance effortlessly, completely in control of the situation. The challenger's jaw dropped, cold sweat pouring out in terror. Amidst the deafening clang of metal, Ranson Banroa easily overwhelmed his opponent. A crack appeared, then quickly spread along the challenger's sword blade. His sword blade snapped, and his arrogance shattered along with it. Ranson's gaze remained cold, without a hint of wavering. I'm going to die." A desperate thought flashed through the challenger's mind. Ranson simply looked down silently, completely in control of the situation. With a lightning-fast movement, he swept past and disarmed his opponent. The challenger's legs trembled uncontrollably, no longer able to stand firm. He collapsed onto the arena floor, utterly defeated. Iadon Sarum stood from afar, unable to hide the astonishment on her face. Casigier Celsius's eyes rolled back, stunned speechless by the unbelievable sight. Ranson calmly spoke. Next, the defeated challenger could only sit there, staring blankly at the opponent who had just struck him down. Iadon thought to herself, in just 2 weeks, he had gone from a low-level expert to an unimaginably mature state. She also realized he had integrated sword energy into his mana. Amidst the pervasive silence, Ranson repeated his challenge. Next, the clear blue sky seemed to contrast with the tense atmosphere below the arena. Another disciple, braver, stepped forward to face Ranson. He roared, swinging his sword to attack with all his might. Ranson calmly raised his sword, a deep blue energy enveloping the blade. With just a gentle sword stroke, he sent the new opponent flying. Slinging his sword over his shoulder, Ranson spoke in an even tone again. Next, the crowd of disciples froze, not a single one daring to move. Ranson swung his sword, coldly declaring, "Next." With just one blow, he completely overwhelmed the third challenger. The opponent fell, and Ranson once again called for the next in a terrifying silence. The watching disciples couldn't help but be terrified. He won again? That guy is truly a monster. From afar, Cassigiera Celsius frowned, his eyes burning with extreme anger. Without a word, he turned his back and left the arena area. Ranson glanced after him, his face devoid of expression. He thought to himself, "Are these all the opponents the high-ranking supervisor prepared for me? Easier than I thought." A figure stepped out, and Ranson assessed. So, the final opponent. The young man with green hair shouted loudly, "I'm coming!" his sword glowing brightly in his hand. Ranson calmly took his stance, dark energy beginning to envelop his sword blade. The challenger charged with all his might, determined to unleash a finishing blow. But Ranson merely raised his sword gently, easily blocking the attack. Immediately, he delivered a devastating kick, breaking his opponent's stance. The young man watched in horror as his sword was sent flying into the air. He fell sprawling on the ground, completely defeated. Ranson suddenly paused, a drop of sweat rolling down his cheek. He looked so young. Was I a bit too rough? His face showed a hint of confusion at the too easy victory. On the ground, the green-haired young man looked up, drenched in sweat but his eyes unwavering. He slowly struggled to his feet, standing upright. To Ranson's astonishment, he bowed respectfully. Then the young man quietly left the arena. Ranson stood frozen, completely surprised by the final opponent's attitude. At the same time, in another location, splendid chandeliers illuminated a magnificent grand hall. A lavish banquet table was already prepared, signaling an important event about to take place. In the opulent banquet hall, esteemed guests were happily chatting and raising their glasses. Iodine Serum let out a sigh of relief. "I'm glad the friendly match is concluded without any major incidents." Ranson Banroa, standing beside her, agreed. She asked worriedly, "Now we just need to get through the closing banquet. There won't be any problems, right?" Ranson looked at her in confusion. "But, Senior, your attire." Iodine winked confidently. "This is standard attire for a closing banquet. You should learn a thing or two, Ranson." The young man pointed down at her feet, exposing, "No, I mean, why are you wearing training shoes?" Iodine's athletic shoes were indeed out of place amidst the formal ceremonial attire, but she didn't care in the slightest. Ranson could only sigh exasperatedly as he watched Iodine turn and walk away stylishly, thinking to himself, "Some people never change." He quietly looked to the side, lost in his own thoughts. Amidst the lively atmosphere of the banquet, Ranson mused, "It's been over a month since I started here." He had once worried that if the Book of Fate didn't update its records in time, some incident would occur. Was I too hasty? Ranson wondered, standing alone with his arms crossed. Suddenly, a voice rang out, and the green-haired youth from the last match approached. "Sir Ranson, I am Milo Hyason." Ranson immediately recognized him. "You're the one from earlier." Milo Hyason suddenly bowed deeply, his voice full of gratitude. "Sir Ranson, I admire you." The boy looked up, his eyes shining with excitement. "I was so impressed to see you defeat everyone. It's truly an honor to face you." Ranson felt a little awkward at the boy's enthusiasm, thinking to himself, "This is a bit much." Milo continued seriously. "Actually, I also have a unique constitution." He took off his soft hat, revealing his pointed ears and disclosing, "I am a half-elf." Ranson was stunned, learning for the first time that the elven race truly existed. Milo explained that even as a half-elf, he had difficulty communicating with sword spirits, unlike ordinary people. With longing eyes, he confessed, "I want to be like you, someone who can freely use both sword spirits and nature spirits. That is my dream." Hearing those words, Ranson felt a pang in his heart again, because he himself didn't even have any special constitution. Looking at Milo's shy and hopeful smile, Ranson saw the shadow of his own subordinate in the boy. Ranson smiled gently, patted Milo's head, and encouraged him. "All right, if you work hard, I'm sure you can do it." Milo excitedly recounted, "But ever since I started using the popular trick, communicating with my sword spirits has become much easier." Ranson gave a wry smile, secretly wondering if this was some new kind of doping. The two continued their conversation amidst the crowded banquet hall. Suddenly, Milo exclaimed, "Ah, I think it's starting," making Ranson ask blankly, "What is it?" Outside the window, a dazzling, colorful triangular object appeared in the night sky. It was the illusion moon. Milo gazed at it raptly. "It appears once a month. And today, seen from here, it's truly beautiful." That thing. Beautiful? Ranson doubted, feeling that something was amiss. The strange object emitted an eerie, reddish, purple light, enveloping the entire space. Suddenly, a piercing scream rang out, making Ranson turn back in alarm. A terrified guest shrieked, "You! What's wrong with you?" As they were grabbed by another person. The scene descended into chaos, with screams and collapses echoing throughout the party. What? Ranson was stunned, unable to believe what was happening. The guests began to scream in agony as their bodies were torn apart and transformed. Before long, ferocious werewolves had materialized, growling savagely. Ranson broke out in a cold sweat, muttering, "Could it be? This is what was prophesied in the Book of Fate." Just then, Milo hunched over in pain, his bones creaking. "Sir Ranson, my body, it's so strange," Milo growled, his eyes glowing red and his face beginning to distort. Ranson screamed the boy's name in horror. "Milo!" Amidst the transformation, Milo desperately pleaded, "I'll be all right, won't I?" Ranson could only call his name in helplessness, his face pale with fear. "I'll be all right, won't I?" Milo repeated the question in extreme panic. Ranson quickly knelt down, embracing the boy who was gradually losing his human form. "Hold on, Milo." In his werewolf form, Milo still tried to call his name, Sir Ranson. Tears streamed down his bestial face, and he whispered, I wanted to become a knight." Ranson gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with both extreme pain and a burning, unyielding determination. Letting out a savage roar, the monster Milo lunged straight at Ranson. Sharp claws swung up, ready to tear everything apart. Ranson turned back, horrified to see his friend had completely degenerated. A devastating blow sent the prince flying. The beast's power was truly terrifying. It landed heavily, searching for its next prey. Suddenly, the monster Milo roared and lunged, tearing at another werewolf. "Milo!" Ranson screamed in despair, unable to believe his eyes. Sweat poured down him, and he gritted his teeth, preparing for an unwelcome battle. Ranson's sword glowed brightly, blocking the werewolf's attack. He strained to defend, but the beast's power was too overwhelming. The werewolf Milo easily flung Ranson backward. A blue flame ignited in Ranson's eyes. He refused to give up. He swung a powerful sword strike, but the monster nimbly leaped to dodge. "Why?" Ranson yelled in helplessness. His powerful slash only cut through the air. "Damn it. Why?" He cursed in his mind. Ranson gritted his teeth, indignation and helplessness clearly visible on his face. He desperately wondered, "Why can't I hit it?" "Ranson!" A familiar voice rang out, full of worry. Immediately, Iodin Serum appeared, using her sword to block the jaws of another charging werewolf. "Ranson, wake up! If we don't go now, both of us will die. The exit is over there," Iodin shouted. "But Milo..." Ranson still hesitated, his eyes fixed on his friend. In that instant, the other werewolves lunged in, savagely tearing at Milo. "It's too late," Ranson whispered, pain evident in his eyes. His gaze turned cold and resolute. "I understand. Let's retreat." Ranson ran while giving orders. "These guys are incredibly strong. I'll aim for the neck. You block their claws." Iodin Serem replied, "Their reflexes are too fast. If I can do it, so can you, right?" Her encouragement made Ranson pause for a moment, sweat trickling down his temples. From a distance, a gigantic wolf silently watched the two attempting to escape. Suddenly, a mournful howl echoed throughout the grand hall. Immediately, the entire pack of wolves responded with growls, their eyes glowing brightly in the darkness. In the blink of an eye, Ranson and Iodin were tightly encircled by the bloodthirsty monster. Ranson's eyes flashed blue, radiating an intense killing intent. A surge of emerald energy and lightning enveloped his body and sword. His gaze became razor-sharp, intensely focused on the enemy. Ranson swung his sword, the emerald blade clashing fiercely with a werewolf's claws. Struck by the blow, the monster threw its head back and roared in fury. At the same time, Iodin unleashed a powerful slash, a brilliant golden light tearing through another enemy. But the danger was not over. Ranson had to face 3 more wolves lumbering out of the shadows. He didn't hesitate to charge forward, sweeping his sword to clear the path of obstructing monster. Iodin also moved swiftly, her agile footwork taking down numerous enemies in an instant. Having cleared a bloody path, Ranson joyfully shouted, "We're almost there." The large double doors, their only escape route, appeared right before their eyes. Iodin declared resolutely, "We'll break through the encirclement and join the Knight Order." Ranson suddenly stopped and said seriously, "The monsters are definitely targeting the treasure Master brought. We must stop them at all costs." But when they turned back, another pack of werewolves had blocked the path ahead. Iodin gripped her sword hilt tightly. "This is the final obstacle. I'll go first." "Wait." Ranson unexpectedly raised a hand to stop her. He sensed something amiss as he said, "Something's not right." A werewolf's back began to swell grotesquely. A surge of fiery red energy erupted from the monster's body, signaling an even more terrifying transformation. Fiery red tentacles shot out from the mutated monster, encircling Ranson and Iodin. Iodin Serum's eyes gleamed with unwavering resolve. She swung her sword, creating a brilliant golden streak in response. Her blade sliced through the abominations rushing towards them. Amidst the encirclement, Iodin's slashes were like a network of light tearing through the darkness. Ranson thought to himself, "This is the state where reaction speed converges to 0, the state of sword faith." Iodin commanded, "Retreat." Ranson responded decisively, "Yes." Severed tentacle fragments lay scattered across the blood-soaked floor, but then, one of them began to twitch, healing itself. Ranson turned back in alarm, sensing a new surge of killing intent. A fully regenerated tentacle lunged straight towards him. Ranson swung his sword, enhanced with blue energy, to parry the blow. He cried out in horror, "They're regenerating!" Iodin realized, "Just cutting them won't." Seizing the moment of vulnerability, another tentacle suddenly whipped sideways. It wrapped tightly around Iodin, lifting her off the ground. The powerful squeeze made her unable to suppress a cry of pain. Iodin was mercilessly flung away. "Io!" Ranson desperately screamed her name. In that instant, Iodin's face clearly showed fear and helplessness. Immediately after, a sharp tentacle pierced through her body. Ranson froze, his pupils contracting as he witnessed the horrifying sight. Fresh blood gushed profusely from Iodin's fatal wound. The shock on Ranson's face quickly gave way to extreme rage. His eyes flared with blue light, unleashing a surge of furious power. Ranson, in a fit of rage, swung his sword, creating an arc of blue energy that tore through the incoming tentacle. Severed tentacle segments flew scattered in the air, but immediately, they began to writhe and regenerate into a single mass of flesh. The werewolf roared, swinging its regenerated arms to attack Ranson once more. The young man dug his heels in, channeling all his strength into his stance. With cold eyes, he darted forward, as fast as lightning. He leaped high, delivering a finishing blow from above onto the monster's head. Ranson's blue eyes gleamed in the darkness, the enemy's blood staining the surroundings. The monster had fallen, but Ranson merely stood silently amidst the ruins. He looked down at the motionless body of Iodin Serum, his fallen comrade. Breathing heavily, Ranson looked up at the devastated hall. The battle was over. He took a step, slowly advancing towards the large door at the end of the hall. His hand pushed the door ajar, letting light from the outside world flood in. But the scene that unfolded was not peace, but a horrific massacre on the streets. Ranson's face was stunned, his eyes wide with horror at the hellish sight. He looked up, seeing strange streaks of light, like the aurora borealis, dancing across the night sky. That light, is it the source of all this? Ranson wondered in despair. He took a step out of the doorway, his feet feeling like lead, his strength depleted. Ranson staggered and then fell forward. He collapsed onto the cold stone floor, whispering, "I thought I was stronger." Memories of Iodin being pierced flooded back, and he bitterly realized, "But I couldn't stop anyone." Lying on the ground, Ranson's gaze was empty, plunged into utter despair. "I failed to change history," he realized the harsh truth. Suddenly, a woman's voice echoed in his head, and emerald magical characters began to materialize. A system notification. Absorb broken causality to rewind time. Broken causality is not infinite, and failure means complete defeat. The mysterious voice uttered a final good luck wish as a magical book opened before Ranson's eyes. The prophetic text appeared, setting his destination, Lucerus calendar year 4673, November 23rd. Master returns after seizing the cultist's treasure. Ranson was stunned, sweat pouring as he realized he had truly traveled back in time. A golden medallion bearing a six-pointed star symbol flashed in his mind. The image of the medallion falling into water, signaling a completely new beginning. The scene changed. Ranson was now wearing a hooded cloak, sitting in a carriage under the blazing Sunday. He flinched upon hearing a familiar voice. An elderly man with a thick beard pulled down his hood, revealing a stern face. Indeed, Ranson. That person was his master, Raytina Celsius, who reiterated, "I happened to meet you and took you as my disciple." Ranson bowed his head, thinking to himself, "I've returned to the starting point." He looked up, his voice trembling as he called, "Master." Raytina Celsius pointed to the wooden chest on the carriage and asked about the spoils he brought back. He answered himself. It was the cultist's holy relic. Ranson was stunned, a horrifying memory flooding back. The cultist's holy relic? Could it be because of that thing? He hastily tried to warn, "Master." Actually, because of it, something terrible happened, but Raytina Celsius coldly cut him off. Enough. He looked directly at his disciple, saying, "I don't know what happened, but it seems that's something you must resolve yourself, not me." Ranson asked in confusion. "What do you mean?" Raytina Celsius only replied with a hint of pity, "I don't know either, it's just, I feel sorry for you." Ranson silently accepted, his mind torn. "So in the end, I have to deal with this alone?" After a moment of silence, he looked at his master, making a new request. Then, I have another request. His eyes blazed with iron determination. Please teach me swordsmanship. The corner of Retina Celsius's lips curved into an amused smile. He crossed his arms, looking pleased. Starting this way isn't bad. On the lush green grass, master and disciple drew their swords, facing each other, preparing for the fated training session. Retina Celsius solemnly declared, "From now on, I will show you the destination you must pursue." His sword erupted with a brilliant golden aura. With a stern gaze, he challenged, "Attack me with all your might." In response, Ranson roared, "I'm coming," unleashing a blue energy current that enveloped his sword. With fierce eyes, he charged forward, swinging a powerful sword strike. Ranson's technique created a massive vortex of sword energy, sweeping away everything in its path. Two other disciples watched, stunned and overwhelmed by Ranson's power. Yet, Retina Celsius stood firm, preparing to counter with his glowing sword. He smiled confidently, the golden sword in his hand radiating terrifying pressure. He tightened his grip on the hilt, channeling all his energy into the upcoming strike. Retina's golden sword energy easily split the blue vortex, creating butterflies of light. Ranson Banroa was stunned, unable to believe his eyes. What is this? Amidst the ethereal scene, Retina Celsius revealed, the realm of wholehearted swordsmanship, adamant sword energy. He solemnly explained, "Wholehearted swordsmanship is the unification of your soul with the sword. Remember this, and forge your soul like a blade." Master and disciple stood facing each other, Ranson engraving his master's words into his mind as he finished his last sentence. "If you can reach that realm." Elsewhere, a blonde swordswoman sternly ordered, "For now, instruct the others." Lost in thought, Ranson, in his white ceremonial uniform, resolved, "I will be able to protect them." Back at the training grounds, he diligently practiced his swordsmanship, swinging his sword again and again. He executed a powerful arcing sword strike, creating a streak of white light. After hours of practice, he was panting, drenched in sweat, but his gaze remained unwavering. Suddenly, the clock tower bells chimed, signaling a crucial moment. A panicked voice cried out as a dazzling polyhedron appeared in the night sky. "The illusion gate has appeared." Milo Heeson looked up at the illusion gate with a face full of excitement and awe. Unlike everyone else, Ranson Banro broke out in a cold sweat, knowing that tragedy was about to strike. It has begun.